In the middle of Madrid, in Spain's National Gallery, hangs a groundbreaking painting that revolutionized art and left a lasting impression about the horrors of war. The painting is called The 3rd of May, 1808, and was made by the now rather famous Francisco Goya. It shows the backs of a pack of Napoleonic soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder with their rifles trained on an array of defenseless citizens of Spain. Civilians lie lifeless on the floor in puddles of blood as their friends look on in terror, expecting their own impending deaths. Some cover their eyes, others fall to their knees, and in the middle, illuminated by the light of a lantern, stands a man with his arm stretched into the air in an appalling blend of despair and surrender. Until Goya made this painting in 1814, for the entirety of the recorded history of visual representation from ancient Greece to medieval Italy and pre-modern France, artists celebrated war as the arena of heroes. Battlefronts were portrayed as the stage upon which warriors made the case for their greatness for the world to see. Artists elevated not peace, but victory, not calm, but conquest, and lionized fights where losers die and victors become divine. So in 1814, for the first time, a painting depicted the front lines as a place defined not by glory, but by gore, and characterized war as the arena not of heroes, but demons. And through this lens, though sometimes necessary, at times even righteous, battle is always tragic, an occasion that enables slaughter and leaves a trail of trauma and carnage and grief. In Goya's painting, for the first time, peace was understood not as a pause between glorious wars, but as an ideal, the ultimate aspiration. And so searing was his painting, so striking was the image of a peasant surrendering before a line of unidentifiable soldiers, that it inspired generations of artists to come, including Edward Manet, Pablo Ruiz Picasso, and the British designer Gerard Holtham, who created the peace symbol with its evocation of a man holding out his arms in despair. But though it was not until 1814 that art promoted peace as an ideal, it was thousands of years ago an invention of our prophets. It is Isaiah's dream of battlefields being transformed into wheat fields that is inscribed outside the United Nations today. And it is Micah's vision of people sitting in peace beneath their own vines and fig trees that was cited by America's first president and receives standing ovations on the Broadway stage today. And those prophets and their peers were in turn inspired by a pledge given by heaven in a text that we read together in shul this morning. We were told, Behar-Bechukotai telechu, if we keep God's law and heed his call, we will receive bounty from on high. V'natati gishmechem bi'itam, I will grant you rains in their seasons, said God. The ground shall produce produce, the trees will give fruit, grain stores will overflow, grapes will accumulate, fresh bread will be plentiful, and most importantly, v'yishavtem lavetach ba'artzachem, you will dwell in security in your land. It is a beautiful blessing that promises joy and serenity with food and good company and peace. But what causes some confusion for our commentators is the next sentence. Where having said that we will dwell labetach in security, God goes on to pledge, v'natati shalom ba'aretz, I will put peace in the land. And this is our question. What does God promise in the second sentence that he did not already offer in the first? What is the difference between dwelling in security and living in peace? All of the other blessings introduce something new. Fruit is filled with vitamins, wine amplifies bliss and lowers inhibitions, bread is the staple of all earthly nutrition. But how do peace and security, bitachon and shalom, differ? For the Catalonian physician, mystic, jurist, and thinker Nachmanides, the distinction is simple. First, God promises betach ba'artzachem, security in the land. which is a pledge to protect and defend the nation from external threats. And then God promises Shalom Ba'aretz, peace within the land, which is a pledge to prevent a far more insidious problem, internal unrest. It is true that distant tyrants and foreign potentates can send troops to invade and tame and enslave a nation, robbing it of autonomy and security. But as Lincoln once said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. To be protected against foreign threats does not keep the peace. If domestic pressures stoke unrest or deepen partition, so God promises that should we heed his word and keep his law, we will be defended from threats, both foreign and domestic. But there is another way to read this pledge that I'd like to share with you based on a perspective of a 12th century commentator from Orleans, Rabbi Joseph Behar-Bechukotai. Now, in the first promise, after rain, grain, fruit, wine, and bread, God pledges to protect the nation from all threats, both from without and within. He vows that a devotion to his norms and his laws will prevent a war on all fronts, both foreign and domestic. That is what it means, Yishavtem lavetach, to dwell securely. There will be no armies on the march, no mutinies in the making. However polarized the people become, there will be no uprisings or insurrections, no rebellions or unrest. But Rav Yosef Behar-Bechukotai suggests that there is something that can be worse than either external or internal tangible threats against the security of the nation. And that is the plague of paranoia. Because even in the absence of actual danger, people can live in fear. Suspicion can infect the mind and destabilize the senses and distort every conversation into an anxious confrontation. And in such a state, despite a divine guarantee of absolute security, society can be consumed by fear and defined by dread and despair. Thomas Paine, in Common Sense, wrote that suspicion is the bane of all good society. So God pledges, after he's already promised to foil every threat, Natati Shalom Ba'aretz. I will not only guarantee calm at the border and harmony in the streets, but I will give you all, says God, peace of mind. I will relieve your imaginations of non-existent enemies and fictional ulterior motives, and bless you all as a people with a sense of inner peace. We will all feel as King David did when he concluded the 4th Psalm and said, B'shalom eshkava v'ishan. In peace I lie down and sleep. Ki ata Hashem, because you, God, lavetach toshiveni, keep me secure. Beyond the blessings of rain and grain and food and fruit and bread lies 2 species of peace. Bitachon, peace in the street, and shalom, peace in the mind, and both were revealed as ideals to our ancestors at Sinai, as central elements of the dignified human life, and eventually portrayed in paint in Spain in 1814. So may we all find ways to manifest the blessings of these 2 species of peace in the street and in the mind, leading lives defined by a drive for a world bound in love and bathed in light. I wish you all a Shavua Tov.